How's it going?
Well, we had a bit of...
That's...
starting off with a U-turn. I think she had a choice. We've got 2 and a bit years to a general election. So do you go with something big now and look to make it show that it works over 2 years? And it does seem that perhaps a bit off more than she could chew with amongst her MPs, I presume. I presume she feels that she couldn't get the 45p tax cut through Parliament.
I actually think you have to give people a chance. We've all made judgments that people don't necessarily like, but it doesn't mean they're not good.
Liz Truss's government, how's it going?
Well, I think it's been interesting so far. I think if you look at the polls, obviously they're not great, but I think as we get further away from that budget, I think actually the polls will be more reflective and more realistic. I think we need probably some distance from that event to tell actually what people think about it.
Marks out of 10?
Oh, that's far above my pay grade.
The problem is now that it will just be the next thing and the next thing and next thing, which particularly with the media being pretty hostile means that once you've failed to stand your ground, then you're opening yourself just to the people looking for the next thing that they can knock down. So yes, it's a difficult start.
Gillian, Liz Truss's government, how's it going?
Well, it's so early days, isn't it? And I'm sure she's had quite something to deal with, and I believe her motives are good. And we're not saying enough about how we're helping with the energy crisis and bringing down bills. Yes, I saw a U-turn probably coming. Everybody did, because they're under so much pressure. And so I just hope we hold our nerve for other things.
How have you found Liz Truss's government so far?
It's been a bit rocky, hasn't it? Yes. It's got to bed down a bit. I was slightly surprised at 1 or 2 of the initiatives that we had, but I think, I think they wanted to sort of come in with a bit of a bang, and not necessarily the bang that they got, but there we are.
Did you back Liz Truss in the leadership election?
I'm not saying who I backed.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, that's not that I didn't back her, but I just think that's a private thing between me and the ballot box.
If someone were to have voted for Liz Truss, would they be happy with how it was going?
Well, I hope they would be fair and say she became Prime Minister and then the Queen died, and that was, which was obviously very sad, and it meant that things weren't really probably more as straightforward as they might be. And I think we all have to think, whichever political party we're in, think of the longer term. You can't just say, that didn't sound great, the headlines are bad, but the headlines seemingly are bad all the time for the Tories, because I do believe there is a little bit of a bias against his party, which may be because they think we've been in power too long.
Liz Truss's government, how's it going?
Well, I don't think it's got off to the best of starts, but I did say right at the start that you need to give any incoming Prime Minister a bit of time to find their feet, because it's the toughest job in the country, and most Prime Ministers need a couple of years to really find out how the job works. So I think she just needs a bit of time and a bit of patience from people.
Is the question then not how terrible will the economy be in the couple of years from then on?
No, we'll wait and see what the economy's doing. I think there's been a bit of hyperbole. The pound has shot up again. That's not been covered really in the mainstream media.
Was that not since the U-turn this morning?
No, it's been going up all last week. Last year was the best year for the pound since 2020. So you shouldn't draw conclusions from what happens over 2 or 3 days. The economy is still growing. We've still got the second lowest debt in the G7. So there has been a bit of a hyperbole over this, I think.
How would you rank Liz Truss's government out of 10 so far?
Well, I voted for Liz Truss. My wife voted for Sunak. I voted for Truss. My preference would have been none of the above.
Who would you have written in if you could?
Well, Boris had to go. I mean, Boris did a lot of good things, but he lied, and therefore he had to go. And unfortunately, the contenders who ended up were not very impressive. I don't actually agree the members should have the vote. I think the vote should be entirely down to the MPs. They are elected by the electorate, therefore they have a mandate. They know the candidates better. They are in better position to make a judgment. Having a vote of Conservative members or Labour members in a similar situation is fundamentally anti-democratic, because by definition you're taking a tiny proportion of the electorate which is unelected. Whereas if you have it exclusively in the MPs, you have actually a body who have been elected.
What do you make of the government's U-turn this morning about the abolition of the top rate of tax?
Well, I think it highlights a misjudgment that they made. It's only £2 billion, which sounds a lot of money, but in the national finances is small change. So it was never going to change anything. It was the wrong political thing to do. It was probably in many ways the right economic thing to do, but it was the wrong political thing to do. It enabled people to excite the politics of envy. Look at it. They forget about the tax reductions for ordinary basic rate taxpayers, which has cost far more money. And they can focus on tax reductions for the rich. And that detracts from the whole agenda, which is a much stronger, more justifiable agenda. So it was the wrong political move, and therefore it was right that it was reversed.
I'm delighted this morning that they have got rid of that removal of the 45% tax ban. Absolutely the right thing to have done. You've got to be brave to admit you've made a mistake.
If you gave them a score out of 10, what would that be?
For what?
Competence.
I'm not sure what score I'd give. I would say they need to do some work, and they know it, on the way they present policies and do the groundwork.
Yeah.
And I would hope to encourage any other members of the Conservative Party that I see to put that message forward.
Never forget the principle that if you didn't have a successful economy, you wouldn't have the taxes to deliver good public services. And I strongly believe in that, which is why I'm behind the thrust of Liz Truss's government in doing all she can to support entrepreneurship and grow the economy and grow the tax take so that we can put more money back into helping and supporting the most vulnerable.
And then she backed down from some of the measures this morning. What did you make of the U-turn?
I've not actually been informed of what those back down would consist of at the moment.
Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng have they've gone back on the abolition of the top rate of tax.
Well, I think that's very good. Yes, absolutely. I think actually I would interpret this quite positively. It shows that she's interactive and she's responsive to what the demands of the parliamentary party and the wider party are. Because I don't have any figures at hand. I don't know how popular that particular idea was amongst the general party membership or what. But I definitely don't think it would be very popular amongst the public. So for that reason, I'm glad that she's changed her mind on that. And I think that does reflect positively on an individual, because some people can be very stubborn. They'll stick with a policy even if they know it's not right and they know a lot of people don't like it. Sometimes I think it's responsible just to say, actually, I don't think that was the right thing to do. It's perhaps not the right time to do it, and therefore we're going to change our mind and go back on that.
Do you think the Conservatives win the next general election?
Well, if it is 2 years away, who the heck knows? Was it Harold Wilson who said a week's a long time in politics, or a day, whatever he said, or an hour sometimes? So it depends what the policies are, depends what the global circumstances are. So I wouldn't put a wager on that one. No.
Well, the Conservative Party is quite ruthless when it comes to its leaders.
Yeah. Defenestration is but yes, if it's not the right leader for the right job at the right time, and I think it was right that Boris had to go for that very reason, although he had great strengths and was the right man to get us out of the Brexit impasse. So yeah, that does happen. I don't anticipate it happening in the near future, but who knows? I'm completely hopeless at predicting what happens next in this life.